But if I were to ask you a similar question, what percentage of the population do you think is capable of truly mastering calculus, or understanding organic chemistry, or being able to contribute to cancer research? A lot of y'all might say, well, with a great education system, maybe 20, 30%. But what if that estimate is just based on your own experience in a non-mastery framework, your own experience with yourself or observing your peers, where you're being pushed at this set pace through classes, accumulating all these gaps. Even when you got the A, that 95%, what was that 5% that you missed? And it keeps accumulating all the way that you get to a more advanced class, and all of a sudden you hit a wall and say, oh, I'm not meant to be a cancer researcher. I'm not meant to be a physicist. I'm not meant to be a mathematician. And I suspect that that actually is the case, but if you were allowed to be operating in a mastery framework, if you were allowed to really take agency over your learning, and when you get something wrong, embrace it, view that failure as a moment of learning, that number of the percent that could really master calculus or understand organic chemistry is actually a lot closer to 100%. And this isn't even just a nice to have. I think it's a social imperative.
So it then begs the question, what if we covered the entire desert with solar panels? How much energy would we actually be able to produce, and how would this change our planet? Let's take a deep dive. For starters, let's begin here. This is the Ouarzazate Solar Power Station in Morocco, the world's largest concentrated solar power plant currently in existence and a marvel of modern engineering. Once fully completed and operational, the plant will take up an area of 25 square kilometers and be capable of producing 582 megawatts of electricity. It will even be capable of storing solar energy in the form of superheated molten salt, which allows for further production of electricity even into the night. After investing more than $9 billion into their solar energy objective, Morocco aims to create 4 additional plants similar to this one in the Sahara that will collectively create more than 2,000 megawatts of electricity production, which will be enough to provide for roughly 38% of all of Morocco's annual electricity needs. This project will transform Morocco into the world's leading solar energy state, and as the only African country that currently has a power cable linked to Europe, much of this energy will be exported for profit to the countries of the European Union.
Most of us know about an asteroid hitting the Earth and wiping out the dinosaurs, but most people don't know that the Earth nearly got devastated by a large igneous province that formed in Siberia 250 million years ago. Now, imagine that we had to deal with a colossal lip like that today. How much damage would it cause? Urban areas would be decimated by the rift, causing extensive destruction. And those quakes? They're just the preview. Next, the lava makes its grand entrance. Once here, it's on the warpath. Farmland needed for raising crops would be incinerated. Bodies of water like lakes, streams and rivers would be vaporized if there was enough lava. And depending on how fast the lava flows, endangered species would be wiped out if they couldn't relocate in time. It would also devastate the economy. Schools, businesses and hospitals would be ravaged, along with infrastructure like highways, power-generating facilities, gas lines and water mains. And that beautiful new house you bought? It's covered in lava. Your new car? It's under lava. And what about you? Well, according to Oregon State University, lava moves on a flat slope, like Hawaii's Mount Kilauea, at a maximum of 10 km per hour, 6.2 miles per hour. The average speed people walk at is 5 km per hour, 3.1 miles per hour, and
Nowadays we have more ways to communicate than ever. Apart from good old-fashioned vocal cords, emails are the most common form of communication with 74 trillion sent every single year. That's 202 billion per day, 2 million per second, and all of them somehow end up in your mailbox. Next to email, you have WhatsApp, with 36 trillion WhatsApp messages per year. Then you've got 14 trillion WeChat messages, 7 trillion texts, 200 billion tweets, 109 billion Zoom calls, about 5 Yahoo Messenger calls and somehow 17 million telegrams. Yes, you heard me right. The world still sends millions of telegrams every single year. There is a few questions like who, what, when, where, why, and how. 4 of those are pretty easy to answer. Telegrams, the world and now. But the remaining 2, who and why, are a little more complicated. To explain why such an old and outdated technology has managed to stick around while so many others like pages, dial-up modems in the iPhone 12 have all that disappeared. You need to understand just how influential and widespread telegraph system really work. You see, when telegrams became publicly available, they were a big deal.
But what exactly happens to your body when you're in a coma? First, we have to be clear that comas are very different from sleep, despite the fact that the origin of the word comes from the Greek for coma or deep sleep. Comas are not sleep, however, and are instead various forms of unconsciousness that render a person unable to respond to any external stimuli. You can play the loudest, heaviest death metal in the world right next to someone who's comatose, and you won't succeed in doing anything except really annoying the neighbors. Likewise, you can even physically hurt people in a coma, and they will remain completely oblivious and unresponsive. In times in the not-too-distant past, this was sometimes used as treatment, with doctors trying to shock their victims back into consciousness. Everything was tried, from exposing parts of the body to open flames, to severely dropping the body's temperature with ice, to even bloodletting from the head directly. One treatment even included wholly emptying the stomach. We guess because the doctors thought that if a patient got hungry enough, the body would force them to wake up. Or maybe they really were just throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at the problem, which we're sure was also tried. Comas can occur as a result of serious trauma or as a deliberate medical treatment by doctors. They are typically brought on by traumatic head injury, and it's believed that it's the brain's way of shutting down so it can focus on repairing itself. They can also, however, be brought on by a stroke or a brain tumor, drug or alcohol abuse, or an illness such as diabetes or infection. Most of the time, a coma only lasts a few weeks though, but past this period, the patient can enter a persistent vegetative